Welcome back to Pin My Podfic, and today I'll be reading chapter 1, part 3. I'm guessing this is still in Robin's POV, as like the same as the previous part. And if this recording is shorter than the others, then I'll be also recording part 4, but in the same video, but we'll see what happens. Now on to the part of the chapter. Robin kept the battering raised, every muscle tight, ready to throw. His mind was racing with possibilities, but none of them made sense. The boy in front of them looked more exhausted than threatening, chest heaving, wide eyes trying to take in his surroundings, but unable to process the destruction around him. Kid Flash took a hesitant step forward. "Hey, you okay?" he asked, still panting, a thin line of blood running down the side of his face. The stranger slowly lifted his gaze. That look. Robin recognized it. Lost, disoriented, like someone dragged from one nightmare straight into another, even worse. Where am I?" he repeated, this time in English, knees trembling as he tried to stand. His scorched, torn uniform barely clung to him. The right glove was gone, revealing a hand covered in scars and flesh wounds, raw and throbbing. Robin swallowed hard, taking in every detail. "This isn't the time for that," he said, mind already calculating distance, timing, and exits. And then he pointed to the timer on his wrist. 20 seconds. "This place is going to blow in less than 20 seconds, he stated, voice sharp and commanding. The boy blinked as if only now grasping the weight of the situation. "Blow?" Wally pointed back towards the improvised bombs they planted, already pulsing seconds from detonation. "The whole ship's going up. We..." paused, drawing in a breath. "We were going to stay and make sure it happened." Robin's eyes narrowed as he turned towards his friend. "Wally." The speedster met his gaze, with the same look as he always had when facing something far bigger than they could handle. Robin almost said, "Don't be stupid," but this time wasn't a luxury they had. The ship's ceiling shook. A deafening crash roared from above, followed by deep, ripping sound, like metal being shredded by claws. An entire section of the structure caved in, throwing plates of steel and twisted cables through the air. Robin felt the vibration rattle all the way into his teeth. The boy flinched, shielding itself from with his arm. Robin and Wally instinctively stepped back in sync. Through the gaps in the collapsed structure, Robin saw movement. First, a jagged shadow, then the burning red gleam of two eyes. No, two coals, cutting through the darkness like blades. The creature pushed the wreckage aside, as if parting curtains. Its deformed body was armored in bone, like plates and jagged spikes. Each step leaving deep grooves in the metal floor. The scrape of its claws against steel echoed through the corridor, accompanied by harsh, rapid breaths, almost human, but saturated with hate. It didn't slow down. It tore an entire panel from the wall, ripping out sparking cables, and crushed a downed sentinel into scrap. With a single blow. Robin didn't blink. His mind mapped out routes, distances, possible cover points, and discarded them all. No time, no chance. Cold sweat prickled his neck. Without taking his eyes off the thing, he asked the boy, "He with you?" The stranger locked his gaze on the advancing creature, even gasping for air, his fists clenched. the muscles in his arms tightening with chaos pulled to the breaking point. He followed me. His voice was low, rough. 10 seconds. Time on Robin's wrist pulled like a cruel reminder. The creature was less than 50 feet away, closing fast. Robin opened his mouth to give the order, but the boy moved first, spinning on his heels so fast that the displaced air slapped against Robin's face. No time! Before he could react, Robin felt the boy's arm clamp around his waist with bone-crushing strength, knocking the breath out of him. The other arm did the same to Wally, lifting him as if he weighed nothing. What the? Wally's voice cracked in shock. Robin barely had time to tense. The grip was tight, almost brutal, but there was something in the way the boy held them, every muscle screaming not to let go. Then came the jump. The metal groaned beneath his feet before giving way. With a roar, he drove power into his legs and launched forward. The impact made the floor boom like a giant drum, and the wall ahead exploded in a deafening crack. Shards of steel and bursts of sparks flew in every direction. The wind from their momentum tore through the smoke, an acrid scent of ozone. Pressure slamming against Robin's chest. The boy broke through the first barrier with his shoulder, the second with a kick that warped the frame, and the third by knocking down a beam that threatened to crush them. Every collision with the metal sent thunder rolling through the corridors. Robin tried to keep his eyes open, but the blast of air, flashing lights blurred his vision. Even so, even as they were hurled through steel and smoke like ragdolls, the boy's grip never loosened. He's not letting go. Who's this guy? Robin thought. Inside the stranger's mind, everything was chaos. Names didn't make sense anymore. The sky was wrong. The air felt different. The monster that had followed him, hungry, and these two were just kids like him. He can't let them die. I can't let them die. I've seen too much, lost too much. He shouted. Just hold on a little longer. 5 seconds. The narrow corridor opened into a wider section of the ship, littered with loose beams and panels floating in the air, thanks to unstable gravity. The boy charged forward like an unstoppable force, ignoring the weight of his own body, and the two he carried. Each leap landed heavier than the last. The metal beneath his feet sank and warped, cracks spiderwebbing out before breaking apart completely. Beams blocking the way were either crushed or hurled aside, clanging against the walls with deafening metallic crashes. 3 seconds. A tear in the hull let the first blade of space light in, cutting through the smoke, heavy gloom. It was cold, distant, glinting off the sweat and blood streaming down the boy's face. Robin squinted against the sudden brightness, and for an instant he was reminded of another escape. A bombing in Gotham, when Batman had dragged him through the underground tunnels, but here there was no Batman. Just this complete stranger who moved like he'd done this 1,000 times before. His left arm trembled, and Robin could tell the grip was starting to slip. Still, he didn't slow down. 2 seconds. Before jumping, before another jump, the final wall of the fuselage loomed ahead, reinforced with thick titanium planes. Robin barely had time to think no way before the boy gathered every ounce of strength he had left and roared, driving his leg forward like a sledgehammer into the obstacle. The impact thundered through the ship. The titanium split, breaking apart into fragments that spun lazily before being sucked out into the void. Space swallowed them whole. Suddenly, there was no sound, only the emptiness and the cutting cold that pierced through every layer of clothing and skin. The sky unfolded into a black canvas studded with stars, framed by drifting chunks of debris, some still glowing hot. 0 seconds. The explosion, the flash behind them, was so intense it turned shadows into pure light for a full second. A second sun was born, swallowing the mothership in a sphere of fire and shrapnel. The shock wave caught them even here, carried through metal fragments and sheer kinetic force, slamming into Robin's body like a physical blow. Wally cracked his eyes open, catching a glimpse of the fading blaze. He he saved us, he muttered, almost in disbelief. Robin still clung to the stranger, feeling the crushing pressure around his chest, not just physical, but a strange certainty that right now this boy was the only thing standing between them and the end. Below them, the earth, or what was left of it, stretched vast and silent. The stranger held them both tight, as if the world itself depended on it. Maybe it did. Seems like I will be, recording part 4. As you can tell in the timeline of this video, I think this is about halfway through the video. Yeah. Anyways, now on to part 4. Part 4, Robin's POV. The air sliced across Robin's face like razor blades, burning and freezing at the same time. It wasn't just the wind, it was the brutal, merciless speed pressing against every muscle and bone, as if trying to crush him against the chest of this unknown boy. The roar of the explosion still echoed far above, mixing with the deafening whistle of the wind tearing through his ears. The pressure made his eyes water, and he had to force his eyelids open just to glimpse something through the whirlwind of clouds. His chest burned from the lack of air. Every second of that fall felt like a constant punch to the ribs, which throbbed beneath the ironclad grip holding them in place. The boy, bleeding, exhausted but unshakable, twisted his body mid-dive, shifting their positions as if he could control not just his own weight but theirs too, against gravity. Robin barely registered the movement before the shout tore through the wind. "Hold on!" The impact began. Before they even hit the ground, the air seemed to compress, dense and solid, until the resistance finally gave way, and they ripped through the clouds like a missile. The world exploded into light, dust, and sand. A deep boom rose from the ground as they hit, and Robin felt the shock travel up his legs, through his spine, and slam into his skull. The ground erupted under them, opening a crater of shattered concrete, loose dirt, and twisted steel, still clinging as it fell. For a moment, it was only silence. Just the sound of settling dust and bits of metal raining around them. The boy knelt, gasping, his arms still shielding Robin and Wally. Slowly, he released them. Wide green eyes scanning the surroundings, distorted like a wounded animal in unfamiliar territory. Robin pushed himself up, knees protesting, ribs aching from the brutal landing. Kid Flash crawled to the crater's edge, coughing through the dust, then turned back, staring at the stranger with a mix of disbelief and relief. "What? Who?" he started, but his voice faltered. Robin stepped forward, eyes locked on the boy. He lifted his gaze, breathing hard, and spoke in a hoarse voice. "Izuku Midoriya. Hero name, Deku." The sentence came out broken, fragmented, like his mind was still trying to catch up to his body. Robin frowned. Hero? At another point, he could have asked questions, pressed for answers, but right now, there was no room for doubt. Robin straightened, his torn cape shifting in the wind. "Robin," he said simply, his voice steady, and used two quick introductions under the fire. Beside him, Kid Flash raised a hand, still catching his breath. Kid Flash, but you can call me Wally. Midoriya blinked, swaying slightly as if the world around him was still off balance. Then he pointed towards the sky, still heavy with smoke and debris. Shigaraki. He. Before he could finish, a grotesque roar split the air, coming from the direction of the explosion. A low, irregular cracking began to break the silence, like something splitting apart from the inside out. Robin's eyes lifted toward the horizon, and the fine dust in the air seemed to pull away on its own in the presence of what was coming. From the burning wreckage of the ship, a silhouette emerged, twisted, inhuman. Every step it took sank into the ground, cracking the metal and concrete like thin glass. Its body was sheathed in a grotesque shell of flesh fused with warped steel. Smoking fragments still welded to it. When its eyes flared a vivid burning red, Robin felt an instinctive chill crawl down his spine. This wasn't just anger, it was an ancient rooted hatred, as if this monster had crossed worlds just to get here. The wind carried the metallic scent of blood and the acrid sting of smoke, and each step it took made the ruins tremble, as if the ground itself rejected its presence. Then it stood, its head tilted slightly to the side. The smile split into a warped arc full of jagged, broken teeth. Deku, it growled, the vibration of its voice carrying through the ground to Robin's boots, an echo so deep it felt like it came from the earth itself. The name sounded heavy, far too loaded to be just a nickname. Robin didn't understand its meaning, but he could feel the threat woven into it. Beside him, Kid Flash drew a deep breath, fists clenched. Robin twirled two batarangs in his fingers, keeping his eyes locked, measuring the distance, calculating, though every instinct in his body screamed to run. And that's when he realized the boy in front of them wasn't going to back down, even with trembling knees, even with his body on the brink of collapse. Run, he said without even looking back at them. He's mine. Robin swallowed hard. Robin fought to catch his breath, his heart pounding. Only two thoughts cut through the haze. Who is this guy? And more importantly, how the hell did he get here? The kid could barely stand, and yet before them stood nothing more than a blood-covered young man, upright like a shattered statue, caught between the wreckage of the half-destroyed land and the monster hell-bent on tearing him apart completely. It was as if he were holding up the very sky with his back. Shigaraki stepped forward, sinking deeper into the ground, the rubble crumbling under the weight of the pressure. The sky behind him burned in shades of orange and gray, as though the entire world was on the verge of collapse. Robin made a move to pull another gadget, but Midoriya raised his hand to stop him. Please. That look. That look. Robin knew it well. It was the look of someone who didn't expect to survive, but was going to fight until their very last breath. Kid Flash hesitated, glancing at Robin, waiting for the call. Then, in the distance, another thunderous boom. The final collapse of the ship, its burning remains still lighting the horizon. Time was running out. Robin clenched the batarangs in his hand, teeth gritted. But before he could decide anything, Shigaraki roared again and charged, tearing through the last few meters between them like a hurricane of flesh, metal, and pure hate. The world seemed to hold its breath. Even the wind stopped. Midoriya closed his eyes for a moment, as if reaching for the strength from a place only he knew. Then He drew in a deep breath. The air around him was pulling to his lungs with such force that Robin felt the sound in his own ears. The ground beneath them, their feet, began to crack before he even moved. Shigaraki raised his clawed hand, each joint popping like dry wood splintering, his shadow growing over all of them. Midoriya's eyes snapped open. It was like watching a spark turn into a storm. He stepped forward, aligning his entire body like an arrow. Muscles screamed, veins bulged, and Robin could swear he felt the heat radiating from that instant. Then came the voice. Not just the shout, but the declaration of someone who had already decided the fate of the next second. Detroit smashed! The impact hit with a violence that shattered the ground itself. First, a blinding white splash swallowed everything. Then, a shockwave blasted outward in all directions, kicking up a storm of dust, rock, and debris. The air was ripped from Robin's and Kid Flash's lungs as they were hurled backward, sliding along the rim of the crater. The ground split in fractures and stretched for miles, as if the planet itself had felt the blow. Down below, the clash of the two titans rumbled like endless thunder. Shigaraki was driven back, tearing up the earth, leaving a deep trench before finally planting his feet and roaring in defiance. The light faded, revealing two silhouettes in the haze, still locked together, still straining to push the other back. It was raw strength against pure hatred, and every inch gained seemed to cost the entire world. Robin watched, unable to look away. There was no way to predict the winner, but he knew one thing. This fight would change everything. The dust hadn't even settled, but Robin and Wally could already feel the weight of what was happening at the crater's heart. Each renewed clash between the two echoed like a thunderclap, accompanied by brief lightning like flashes bursting through the ground. Wally steadied himself, his face streaked with dust and strain, trying to see through the swirling smoke. He's holding his ground. His voice was tinged with disbelief, like he couldn't trust his own eyes. Robin, still on his knees, kept his gaze fixed. He didn't let himself blink. It wasn't just strength, it was endurance. It was the fight of someone who, even on the verge of collapse, refused to take a single step back. Through the haze, Midoriya and Shigaraki's figures alternated in dominance. At times, the hero driving the villain back, opening craters under his feet. Other times, the villain countering, sending the boys skidding and shattering the ground beneath them. The sky above seemed to lean over them, heavy with smoke and embers, as if the world itself were watching. Robin took a deep breath. Something about this felt different. It didn't seem like a battle between strangers. It was personal. He hadn't known the kid's name until seconds ago, but he could feel it. Midoriya was fighting for something far bigger than his own life. A fierce roar tore through the wind, followed by a wave of heat that made Robin's tattered cape snap against his legs. Wally took a step back, but Robin stood firm, as if the sight anchored him to the ground. Down below, Midoriya dug in, his entire body shaking, before unleashing one last punch that made the light explode once again. Robin didn't know how this would end, but one thing was certain. After the night, he would never forget the name Deku. And that was the end of chapter 1. With the final two parts of chapter 1, part 3 and part 4, both being Robin's POV. But I remember, I'm pretty sure like we're gonna get Midoriya's POV of the fight with Shigaraki in like for the next 2 chapters. Like I think so. Like the first two, well, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but we all know that Midoriya's gonna win, but if I remember, it's in the next few chapters. It's when the fight finishes. I don't remember when, but yeah, I am certain that like it ends real quick. The fight, well, not actually quick. You know what? Just go check out the author. I'm not gonna spoil anything. If you want to read ahead, go ahead and head over to AO3 on after the fall and go to what's it called? Yeah, innocent with one N underscore reader. And I'll see you on the bloopers, and then see you on the next part. Robin pet the Bataran. Fuck the Bataran. Petting the Bataran. Fuck. Part completely. It was as if he were holding up the very sky with his back. But isn't Atlas, like Atlas and holding the world? Well, isn't Atlas like canonical in the DCU? I remember there was a comic where Superman held up the world for Atlas for one day because Atlas wanted to go to his daughter's wedding. Yeah. Anyways, actually go check out the comics if you can buy them, or even just online. But yeah.